Morning, it's Nikki. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining, for watching, for listening. Today I am talking about capacity. And this has been really tested, I think, for so many of us over the last couple of years. This word of capacity keeps coming up for me. And we have had to grow and change and pivot and maneuver ourselves perhaps in ways that, none of us could have predicted. And I think many of us are feeling, I can see like my eye bags right here, but I think many of us, as we're getting towards Christmas, we are going to be ready for a big break, a big sit down, or at least have some quiet moments where we can just stop, reflect, and think about things. Because this sense of capacity shows up in different ways, and I'm acutely aware of burnout and how all of these roles, all of this multitasking, all of the things that we have to do each and every day, like sometimes even when I've done the school run and I get home and it's 9:05, I just have to stare at the wall for 2 minutes and just have a moment. And my goodness, I haven't done anything groundbreaking, but having 2 children up from 5:30, and if I'm here on my own and Matt's away working, it's quite a lot. It's quite intense having that much, especially as I'm a morning person who likes to kind of ease into the day and make my tea. It's quite a lot of stimulus, let's just say. But I want to talk about capacity in terms of your business, because there is a lot of chat about just go for it, or just do it, or just make a decision. And if you followed for a while, you will know how much I lay importance on a spectrum. Because what can happen is if we are we're on or we're off, it really can mess around with our momentum and our sense of being gentle with ourselves. It's almost that moment if somebody says, right, I'm on a diet today, and then suddenly they've eaten a cookie and then they're like, oh no, I've ruined the diet. Oh, I'm a failure. Oh, I've broken it. This sense of a spectrum, or just easing, or, allowing yourself that flexibility is really important. That gentleness, that kindness to ourselves is absolutely key, especially at this time of year as well. So I want to give some examples of what this capacity could look like in your business and how it might be showing up, and maybe what you can do to play around with it. As always, there's no right or wrong with this. I'm simply giving you exercises or pointers to play around with. So one of the things that really came up for me was when I had my son. And he was that baby who ideally would be sleeping on me the whole time. Not even in a sling. He was so let's do skin to skin and be like that immediately. And so we bought this amazing bedside cot thing, which are always just ridiculous amounts of money when you think about how little they're in there for. And when I moved him out of that, or when it became the time where he could safely go into a bed, we didn't mess around with one of those toddler beds. We had a double bed in another room, and so we made that all safe, of course, because we knew that one of us would probably be sleeping in that bed with him for most of the night, all the time. And finally, he's in his own bed, and that is a great thing. My daughter is still up and down a little bit. But when I was thinking about that capacity, I was thinking about the importance of sleep. And yes, on paper, the toddler bed would have been probably the next suggested thing. But for capacity of being able to do all of the other things, you're so restricted, especially if you have an adult person in there as well. And I think so often we can get to a point where the capacity that we're in and our hopes or our dreams or what we need from the situation are not in alignment. So sometimes what the next step is to really check in and ask yourself where you are at right now Is it giving you what you need? And if it's not, how can you play around with that? Because again, there is so much societal influence where people will say things like, oh, this is the thing that you should do next, or this is what tends to happen. But if those circumstances or situations don't work for you, you have to change them around, and you have to have that trust in yourself of saying, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. So another way that it could show up is giving yourself the capacity to ease in to a new version of yourself. So I know people always talk in this way of like, right, I'm going to up level. Yes, I'm going to move out of my comfort zone. Almost like it's like, oh, I'm going to press a button and here I am, a brand new person. But I always feel that in order to get to that high point of the roller coaster, you've got to have that moment where you're clinging on for dear life and you can feel yourself going up, and that sense of, oh my goodness, what have I done? Oh, I feel a bit scared. I feel a bit terrified. I'm sort of excited, but and there's that adjustment period in it. So when I hear people saying, right, make a decision, go out and smash this goal and, do it in 2 days and change your life, or do it in 7 days. When I'm talking about capacity, sometimes it's saying to yourself, actually, I'm just going to give myself a bit more of a capacity because I need that time of readjustment. I need a bit more wiggle room to really settle into the process. And that capacity of timing is going to be different for different people. And certainly since I've become a mum, in terms of work, especially, if my partner's been working away a lot, I now know what space and what capacity I need to give those deadlines. And there's absolutely no point me saying, right, I'm going to do this in the next 24 hours. Because what happens if suddenly one of my kids gets chickenpox, which has definitely happened in the past? Both of them have had it, where you're suddenly like, oh no, I'm going to have to, oh wow, I've got children at home now. How am I going to do that? And I think that's what happened for so many of us at the beginning of this year and last year, of that adjustment where our capacity and what we wanted to or needed to do was out of whack. And it kind of left us feeling like a bit discombobulated, let's just say. Another thing, sorry, I'm just going to flip my phone one down so I can see my note. Okay, great. The second thing I would love to say is you can, in terms of changing up your capacity, you can have a period of trying on a new version. So this sense where people might pressure you on the internet, or people might say, come on, kid, come on, let's get on with it. You've got to do this. Actually, you stepping into the next version of the capacity is sometimes not making a decision. So if I go back to the riding of the roller coaster, you stepping into the capacity of moving into that is not necessarily riding the roller coaster. This could be you looking at pictures of the roller coaster on the internet, or going on YouTube and watching other people ride the roller coaster while you sit cozily in your blanket. Maybe it's going to the theme park a couple of times and just walking past it and nudging your pal and saying, bloody hell, it's really high, isn't it? Woo, it's high. Or maybe going and reading the safety restrictions, whatever that might be. So in terms of your capacity and trying on your next version of what it is, give yourself that time to browse, to window shop, to consider, to get a big piece of paper and a pen and write down the pros and cons. And don't go into that thinking, gosh, I'm not going to be serious if I don't make a decision right now. Because I know I am somebody that needs all of the facts. I need to know exactly what the next steps are. And that's why I don't get on sales calls when I'm looking for some support until I'm pretty much 90% sure that I'm going to go ahead, because I'm just not going to waste that time with that person. Usually that 10% that is missing for me is I just need to check they're a nice person. I just need to check that we've got flow, or that we feel aligned, or they're not going to be wildly different to how they are on the internet, or I just need to kind of double check a few things. So usually before I make bold moves in my business and my life, I'm just kind of trotting around. I'm peeking in like the windows of it. I'm going away in discussions, and sometimes people don't even know that I'm doing that. And, you know, I've had moments where I've done something and people go, bloody hell, that came out of nowhere. I'm like, no. Like, obviously been planning it for 6 years. You know, it's been something very much underground that I've been tending to or working on. And to the outside world, it looks like it's come from nowhere. But in terms of where I'm up to, absolutely not. I've been planning. The third thing I want to share with you in terms of capacity is asking what your money goals are, and then playing around with percentages. So this is one of the things that I do with my clients all the time when I ask them if it's a money concern. Like, I'm not just saying it for the sake of it, like, oh, what do you want to earn then? I'm not saying like, let's get your bank statements out, let's go through it. But this has been a really valuable exercise. So say, for example, you want to, and I'm going to use like a random figure here, you want to earn £1,000. Great. You want to earn £1,000 in a month. Lovely. I would love you to play around with what it would feel if you earned 1,100. So just 10% more instead. And almost setting that as your goal rather than the 1,000. Because one thing that I've noticed, certainly from myself and from my clients, is usually, or many of us, have more capacity than we think. We are capable of way more things than we assume. So playing around with that slightly bigger percentage just to see what happens. And again, this is something that you can test. This is something that you can work through and see what happens and see how that changes for you. So the reason that I started doing this in terms of setting goals, whatever it might be, is because I noticed my own behavior. So when I did the couch to 5K and I started running again properly, I got to this point where I knew that I could run 5K. I knew that I could run it confidently. It took me a while to kind of get to that point, but I knew that I could do it. But what would happen? Did I run to the point of 5K where I ran full out right to the end? Absolutely not. I would get to about 4.7K and I'd start to ease off. I'd start to go, oh, I'm nearly there, yeah? Yeah, all right. Oh, what's in that shop window? Oh, I'll just check my phone. Oh, I'm going to look at some different music. Oh, actually, I've done a big run already. I'll just walk the rest. I'll just do that last bit. And so by the time I got to 5K, I was actually not at, whoa, I was winning. I was strolling into it. And so what I started playing around with at building my capacity was saying, okay, what does 5.1 or 5.2K look like? And then what I realized was when I was getting to that 5K, I was really in that flow, and that last 0.2K, really easy. So play around with it in terms of your money goals. And I know sometimes people will say these things of like, yeah, just double it, yeah. That jump in terms of capacity might be too much. You know, if you're trying to earn 1K per month and somebody goes, no, do two. That might not feel right in your body yet. And I'm using abstract figures there. It has to be much more of a gradual process. It has to be about building that capacity, that sense of moving forward. So people might say this in terms of exercises as well, of can you do 3 jumps on the spot? Now, the first time you'd be like, no, I can't do 3 jumps. Okay, so my question is always like, okay, so what can you do? Okay, well, I can do 1. I can do 1 really good jump. Great. And it's about building on that. So when I'm talking about this capacity, it's a much gentler way of getting towards what it is that you want to build, and not having this binary, I'm on or I'm off, or I'm great or I'm not, or I feel good or I don't, or I'm winning or I'm losing. It's not that binary situation. It's all a spectrum. So you can have that flow where you can just tweak it the whole time. You know, we've all been to those school discos or those bad parties or weddings where there's a DJ that's like, right, we've turned it off. Now we're putting a new track on. You're like, wow, that was abrupt. So it's just about changing those levels the whole time. Now, if I'm looking at really working on a particular goal, that's what I do in terms of the action. I'm not going, there's the goal, right, okay, I can see it in the distance. I'm looking at my actions, my habits, my thoughts, my feelings, my moves that I want to make that are just going to alter the levels a little bit. So I hope that was helpful. I would love to know what you think and where you want to widen up the capacity. One final thing I want to say is there's going to be reasons and seasons in terms of your capacity, and you know what's going to be right for you at this time. So we've seen this a lot where people go, okay, January, new you, yes, let's go. And yes, I like January. I do have that point where I'm like, right, these Christmas decorations need to come down. I'm ready to kind of get into the groove of a new year. Brilliant. I like that sense of a fresh start. But also I get that feeling in September, you know, when the kids go back to school. I also sometimes get that feeling in March when the nights start to pull out a little bit, or it starts to feel a bit warmer or lighter in the evenings. I get that as well. So it's about really tuning in with your rhythm of things, of how you work within that. But secondly, what else is going on in your life? And you know what you need in that circumstance. So I remember 6 years ago, just slightly less than, when I was talking to a coach, and this coach was like, great, okay, get up at this time before your child does. And I just didn't have that capacity at that time. And sometimes as grown-ups, this is the thing with adult responsibilities, we're needed in different ways. So your capacity, again, might not be measurable in that way. It might be, I really need to be at home for my kids right now. Or, you know, like I've experienced with some friends and family at the moment, like I've really got to be there for my family members, for elderly family members who have been ill, or there's so many different things that could take our capacity and our focus. So just be really gentle to yourself. That is what I would say. If you are looking though for somebody to play with and work on that capacity. Work on that capacity sounds a bit serious, doesn't it? But support you, I would say. Support you and hold you accountable as you move into this next version. If there is an area of your life where you're like, do you know what? I know that I can go into fifth gear here, but I don't leave third or fourth. Like I'm here and I want to be here, and I'm not quite sure how to coordinate all the pieces. Do get in touch with me. I am taking on new clients for the new year. So let's have a conversation. That's always the first step. Let's have a free 15-minute chat. I'll send you my availability. You can tell me what you want. If I can't help you, I will absolutely say, because there's absolutely no point otherwise. We've all been in those circumstances where you're like, no, I am not the right person for this job, and let's just step away now. So I will absolutely do that too, and I'll recommend somebody else as well. But I'd love to know where you want to play around with capacity. If you take away any of this exercise and what you do, as always, my DMs, my emails are always open. All right, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to send you lots of love.